live here. We're going to go. Hi, everybody. Wave, guys.
Oh,
Wave
hey.
the cameras. We are live here at the Mount Rushmore podcast special, Total Rushmore Live. And up above us, well, we're supposed to have Steve up there. Let me get Steve in the split screen. We are very privileged to have Steve Dolinsky in Chicago. Are you currently in Chicago, Steve?
I'm in Chicago, yeah.
Cool. Are you celebrating National Pizza Day in Chicago?
I sort of am. I've already had I've had two pizzas today, actually.
Oh, you've had two pizzas already.
That's just Sunday. That's just a Sunday.
That's a typical Sunday for Steve Dolinsky.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the weekends are pretty full of pizzas for me because we lead tours, and there's always somebody in town who wants to go see a pizza place. So, yeah.
Could you tell us about your pizza joint in Chicago?
You mean my tour business? I don't have a restaurant.
Oh, I thought you had a restaurant. Well, you have all the restaurants. That's a good thing. You have all the restaurants that Chicago has to offer. Tell us about Pizza City USA.
Yeah, so Pizza City USA is a couple of things. It's a book first. The subtitle is 101 Reasons Why Chicago is America's Greatest Pizza Town, and I spent about 2.5 years on it, about 6.5 months of just solid eating, going to 185 places in the region to find my 101 best. And I broke the book really into 10 different categories of pizza because there's a lot more here than just deep dish and stuffed pizza that most people outside of Chicago only know about. And then Pizza City USA is also a tour business. Every weekend we give tours, public tours. We do bus tours, walking tours, private tours. I had 2 tours yesterday. And we start walking again in May. We have a sort of walking season from May to October. And then it's also a podcast every other Friday. Pizza City, the podcast, is about a year old now, and we feature some of the best pizza makers from around the country.
That sounds great. Do you enjoy talking to people about pizza as much as you enjoy eating pizza?
I do, because I feel like for so many years, and I've lived in Chicago now for about 27 years. I'm originally from Minnesota, but I've lived here for quite a while, and I've only seen misinformation about Chicago pizza. And so I do sort of get a charge out of educating people about sort of what Chicago pizza is, and a lot of times even locals who grew up here or in the suburbs and fancy themselves, pizza aficionados, they don't really know much about pizza. They've been to 3 or 4 pizza places and they think they're experts. They've been to the one near their office, the one near home, and then the one in between. And so I've really kind of spent the last couple of years teaching people about what Chicago-style pizzas are, what does that mean, where can you find the good stuff. A lot of it is off of Michigan Avenue, where most of the tourists go. It's sort of like if you go to New York and you say, I've only spent 48 hours in Times Square, and that's been your eating experience. That's kind of what it's like just going to Michigan Avenue.
Michael, you've done a little bit of pizza touring in Chicago.
Yeah, I did a walking pizza tour a few years ago where me and my wife, Emily, went for a wedding. And I think it was kind of probably along that same sort of thing. We started at a pizzeria, Uno, and went to Giordano's, and I think we did pizzeria Duo, and there was another one, maybe there's a fifth one in there. But it took 2 hours of walking along and eating pizza. And of course, during the time we also had gone to like Gino's East, and it was probably a more generic, as you kind of saying, kind of tour of it. We didn't get a chance to go to like Pequod's that we'd heard so much about, and some other places but it was really fun just to kind of indulge for one afternoon of just eating pizza, which we often do.
Yeah, but the places you're talking about, it makes me sad. It does. It really does, because you come to my city and you've eaten, like the TGI Fridays, and then now you think you've had Chicago pizza. Giordano's, first of all, is not deep dish; it's stuffed pizza, which is a totally different style that started in 1971. Deep dish started in 1943. Tavern style, which is really Chicago style of pizza, which you probably didn't even eat while you were here, is the one that actual Chicagoans eat on a weekly basis. That's been around since the 1920s.
Mm-hmm.
So, for someone to say they went to Giordano's and Uno's and Due's and Gino's, again, you spent all your time near Michigan Avenue, And it's back to that Times Square analogy. It's unfortunate, and so that's kind of why the book was written, to get people, to get into a cab and go for like maybe a $5 cab ride to a really good pizza place, to an artisan place where they're fermenting the dough for 3 days and doing 68% hydration and making all the sausage in house, or going to a Detroit style place, or going to a classic tavern style where they're using the pinch and press raw sausage with the fennel that you don't find on the East Coast, with the jardiniere and the cornmeal crust undercarriage. So it's really unfortunate, again, that most people who come to Chicago don't get a proper pizza experience.
Well, for a number of years here in LA, me and Richard, really, you two, we kind of ran a pizza club here. It was centered around our friends, and for 5-6 years, every other week we try a brand new pizza place, no matter it was either in the Valley or in LA or in the city, or we kind of drive all over. And that was, I think part of it was really just experiencing just different places. And, none of them were a chain. They were all kind of just individual places. They would be sometimes in like a strip mall. Sometimes they'd be just like a, kind of classic family style Italian place that served pizza. They weren't necessarily pizza joints, but they were just, places to eat pizza. And I think that was really my big pizza lesson, was just eating as much as you can, tasting as many different places, and finding like little hole-in-the-wall gems that were just like really good pizza for...
Right, but you wouldn't, even you would tell me probably not to go to Hollywood and Vine and get a $2 slice.
No, but I also say the same thing. Yeah, about not going to like New York and just grabbing a generic piece of pizza off the street. When I was in Chicago for this pizza tour, it was, we were there for a long weekend, and this was the thing that was available.
Yeah, well anyway, so now you know. Next time you're here, you'll let me know.
Great.
I gotta say, LA has had some. I've been to LA about half a dozen times the last 2 years. There's some great pizza there.
Sure, absolutely. I think LA is a very underrated pizza city. I think, as we discovered,
you can get a wide range of pizzas. I think we found some pretty good deep dish.
Have you guys been to Apollonia's in Mid-Wilshire?
No, I haven't.
No, I have not. I'm getting schooled on LA pizza from a guy from Chicago.
He's on Wilshire Boulevard. Justin's his name. He's a professional photographer turned pizza maker.
Ooh.
And his photos are just beautiful, by the way. He's Apollonia's, I think it's Apollonia's Pizza on Instagram. And he's known for these beautiful high cheese crowns, or fricos, that border the sort of the edge of these pizzas that he makes. He does squares and slices, and really remarkable pizza. It's someone would say it's a Detroitification of a Sicilian pizza, but it's really I call it an Angelino square. Was kind of the way we came up with it. He was on our podcast a few months ago. He's got a great pizza. Daniele Uditi, I'm sure you've heard of Pisana. He's got one in Brentwood and on West Hollywood. Pisana's amazing. You got a Joe's there on Sunset Boulevard, the original Joe's from New York, which is a great slice. Nancy Silverton's got mozza. There's a lot of good pizza there.
That's great. Since it's we'll jump right into it. If I haven't already, I just want to say thank you again, Steve, for joining us today. And I definitely want to, before we go, promote Pizza City USA, ask you to share your social handles. I think the auspices of this podcast were the top 4. We were just wanted to discuss pizza with you, but I don't know if you have your top 4 pizza styles, or is there any top 4 that you would have for your Mount Rushmore of pizza, Steve?
Yeah, in general, I think artisan style is the greatest, because it's, again, lots of fermentation, lots of moisture in the dough, typically handmade, homemade ingredients, and you don't find it everywhere, and it's kind of a rare bird. The artisan style is great. It doesn't need to be a wood-burning oven. In fact, it's usually not. It's usually a gas-fired oven. Bakes a little bit longer at a little bit lower temperature. Everybody sort of, Neapolitan is the sexy pizza because it's the wood burning and it's the 900 degrees Fahrenheit and it bakes in 90 seconds. But a lot of those pizzas are pretty wet in the middle. And I find the artisan pies to be superior. So I would say artisan, definitely Detroit style. That's been the real comer the last 2 years or so, really coming on strong. Emmy Squared from New York really has started this craze. They're now in Nashville. They're going to be expanding around the country. But that sort of Sicilian middle sauce put on post-baked high, sort of crispy cheese, frico around the edge. Jets is kind of the fast food version of it around the country, but there are several places around the country now to get a Detroit style. And then I think Roman al taglio is kind of a cousin to that. It's got that sort of long fermentation, sort of soft middle like a focaccia, but very crispy underneath. Roman pizzas are always crispy. You typically tell the pizza maker how much you want, and they cut it with scissors, and then they weigh it, and you pay by the pound. And the topping, and I'm talking about a place called Bonci, which has started in Rome, expanded to Chicago, and is now about to open in Miami. And he's known for about 8 dozen toppings he can do, all kinds of like octopus and seafood and mozzarella and potato. But Roman al taglio was really a great style. And then I think Brooklyn is kind of its own style. Places like La Industrie, Best Pizza, DeFara, they do some amazing pizzas in Brooklyn. And I'd probably put a classic deep dish in there for my number 5. I don't love that style. I don't eat it that often. But there are a couple of places that do a really premier deep dish, and when done properly, it's really a remarkable accomplishment.
Well, that's a wonderful pizza style education.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, how would you like to respond? You want to share just highlights from your list? Or?
Sure. I have 2 that were not on our list. I know sometimes I do this by trying to pad out the list. There's 2 that I wanted to mention. One of them was the New Haven style of pizza, which I primarily had through, not in New Haven itself, but there's a place, Steve, I don't know if you're familiar with the Pizza Shoals in Portland.
In Portland, yep.
And that is very much, I don't know that they would consider themselves to be exactly a New Haven style, but I think it is very similar to a New Haven style, where it's got a very almost burnt kind of crust to it.
Yeah, they are actually an homage to New Haven, because in New Haven you would pronounce the word A-P-I-Z-Z-A, beets. And so when you see it, it's actually Beets Shoals. It's A-P-I-Z-Z-A Shoals. So that is like a definitely sort of a wink and a nod to New Haven.
One of my favorite pizza places in the country, I will say that. Certainly right up there with any of the ones I've had. The other one I will mention that did not make our list was the St. Louis style pizza. Which did not make my list primarily because I'm not a fan of it, but I felt like it was worth mentioning if you've never had it. It is a very unique and specific type of pizza. The bread, or I should say the dough, is more of a cracker than anything else, and they use this cheese called Provel, which I'm not a fan of. It to me, it's just way too kind of buttery. But it's
technically the USDA does not. I recognize it as a cheese. It's a brutal product. It's a combination of mozzarella, provolone, and Swiss. I've been to Emo's, the mothership down there.
Same here.
I don't mind Provel actually. I think it's kind of pleasant. In fact, there's a guy in New York, Justin Bazarich. He's got a place called Speedy Romeo, and he's from Kansas City, and he grew up eating Emo's. And so he puts Provel on a beautiful wood-fired artisan pie with pickled Fresno chilies. So Provel can be delicious. It's that crust at Emo's that I think is really subpar. It's all produced in a factory, they're in their commissary, and it really doesn't have any flavor or texture. It's just kind of, it's sort of cardboard-like.
Yeah.
Chicago tavern style can be that cracker thin, like at Pat's or at Vito Nick's. And there's actual flavor to that crust, but I didn't find the St. Louis crust to be all that great. But I do think Provel gets a bad rap.
Okay, well, like I said, I've only had Provel on St. Louis style pizza at Imo's, and it may just be that I didn't like Imo's, so maybe I shouldn't be slagging on all of St. Louis. So you want to go through some of the we have?
And I think something to note about our list is, when we talk about the Mount Rushmore, it's not necessarily the best pizza. It's not the best pizza we've ever had. It's not the best places. It tends to be what is most representative of what pizza is. And so we started going down the list, and we started kind of narrowing it down to 4 places. And the first one is, we thought of Neapolitan, just for how, what's the word? Ubiquitous it is, yeah.
Yeah. It's the original pizza. It comes from Naples, from the...
When we...
century or something.
Yeah, last year we did an episode about the Mount Rushmore of Italians, and we talked about the inventor of the margarita pizza, who was Raphael Esposito. And so I think that just kind of hung in our head as like, let's go back to where it first kind of started and kind of before it kind of migrated over. Then, of course, we started on our list was like a Chicago deep dish type pizza. Not to honor you, just because I think it's very just iconic as a different sort of pizza. People have it in their mind as what pizza can kind of turn into in a different form. It has all the elements of it. But is totally different from really anything else.
And as we were discussing this episode, I was discussing this with my wife Sarah, and she sort of brought up that she doesn't think that a deep dish is necessarily a pizza. So there is a little bit of an element of, she considers it more of a casserole than anything else. Now I would say that maybe
that's wrong. I'm sure she's a very nice person. That's wrong.
I would consider a stuffed pizza to be more of a casserole.
Saying that without actually having a mai pie or la briola or malnati, I mean, those aren't casseroles. What she's thinking of is a stuffed pizza from Giordano's, which is a casserole. Totally different style. It's a second layer of dough across the top. You can't lump deep dish into that category.
Absolutely. Like I said, I think to your point, I think she was thinking more of a stuffed pizza. But it does bring up an interesting.
Tell her not to say deep dish.
Yeah.
I mean, tell her that you can't say deep dish without a pizza.
We will be out there in early March, so we will. I will have to.
All right.
We might have to hook up.
All right, guys. Let's give him our last two.
Our last two. A third on our list was just the kind of generic California style pizza, where you've taken a pizza and you're just like, what are we going to do in terms of toppings? How can it be changed with different fruits? And I think, Richard, you had something to say about it.
I'm not a fan of the. I should say this. I've had some good California pizza. I think that a lot of California pizza can delve into the world of being fey and pretentious, if those are words that you can use to describe pizza. And I think a lot of what I'm trying to figure out is what makes a pizza a pizza. Is there something? I mean, what is the definition of a pizza?
I know Scott Wiener in New York has tackled this several times. My definition, there's got to be a crust, a firm crust at the bottom of something to hold up the ingredient. So we're not talking about a calzone or a pot pie. There's got to be a base layer of some type of sauce, whether it's white or red. And there's got to be cheese. It could be mozzarella, it could be fior di latte, and then maybe a topping or two, or not. I don't even need topping. But I think crust cheese sauce is kind of the baseline for pizza. Some people call Turkish lahmacun a Turkish pizza. It looks like a pizza because there's crust and there's a topping and there's some sauce. So that's kind of what I think a pizza should be.
Sure. And then our last one, this will probably make your head spin.
And it's nothing that I necessarily order myself, but any sort of the constant reinvention of what fast food pizza thinks it should be in terms of like stuffed crust pizza and these garlic knot pizzas and all of this kind of garbage pizza food, I think is so indicative of what people keep trying to invent pizza to be. They're kind of like trying to remake the wheel, and speaking of something round, that really doesn't need to be made, but like I always see pictures of it and I always want it and never order it, but it's just out there and I know it's awful and I know it's just kind of like mass produced, but I think if we're talking about like pizza or pizza state in America, there's so many other great options, but so many people still
go to Domino's
or go to Pizza Hut. They still choose these lesser options, and I think that is ultimately what
it's a real point of frustration for both of us.
Yeah.
And listen, it's hard for people if they don't live in New York to get to New York. I mean, you guys are on the opposite side of the country. And by the way, when you say California pizza, it's interesting. For me, I'm thinking like California's a big state. I'm going to San Francisco in a couple weeks to do some eating research there. And I've been to LA, but very different cities, obviously, and then you've got a lot of stuff in between. To say California style to me, it's such a vast area you're talking about.
Well, as Californians, I'm sure as a Chicagoan, people assume that we're surfing to work and deal with earthquakes every day and
Right.
shootings on the freeway. Everyone is stuck in 1991 in terms of what their thought is of what California is. And it's just how it is.
I appreciate you taking the time from your very busy day, Steve, to share with us your thoughts and your expert opinions on pizza. This is National Pizza Day. I encourage anybody who's watching, all the people out there who are watching this again, to go out and find a new style and a new place to enjoy and to go to Pizza City USA. What's the best social handle for you then to find you on, Steve?
The best thing, our website's pizzacityusa.com. That's got all the information about the book, podcast, and our tours. And then on social, I'm at Steve Dolinsky with a Y, and then also Pizza City USA on Instagram.
Okay, well those will all be on our website. And even though Chicago is Pizza City USA, I have visited the blog, and there are stories about pizza from all over the country, all over the world, I believe, and it was very eye-opening and very informative. And you have been eye-opening and informative and challenging our presuppositions about pizza, so we appreciate that. So thanks again to Steve Dolinsky. I hope you enjoy National Pizza Day, Steve, and I hope the weather stays good in Chicago.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, we're still here. This has been the Mount Rushmore podcast. I think it's that camera we're looking at right now. So
No, don't tell me which camera.
don't never tell me the
Don't
camera.
ever tell me the camera.
We want to thank you guys for tuning in to our live stream, the Totally Rushmore Live, discussing pizza. Steve Dolinsky's a pretty smart dude when it comes to pizza and has his opinions. And has
Definitely
his
strong
input.
opinions
Yeah.
on pizza, which you would expect from a pizza expert.
Yeah,
I wrote a little note to Richard in the middle of the podcast saying we are totally outclassed here.
outclassed.
Out of our,
We always are, but very specifically, it was just like it was like being caught out in a monsoon of pizza knowledge when you're just like, I like pizza.
Yeah.
I like to eat pizza. I'm a dope, and like the expert came in and just
smacked you down.
Yeah, in a very
With a
nice
pizza.
way.
yeah, no, the guy was super. He was great. Loved him.
I should point out, I didn't get to tell we were talking about the Pizza Hut. I remember when.
God, let's order it right now.
Yeah, I know.
Have you seen the commercials? I mean, they put garlic knots on the end.
I remember when stuffed crust pizza came out in '95, and I was 19 at the time, so I was right in college, where I was eating a medium Domino's pizza every 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
And I didn't know from good pizza. I was one of those dopes who came from a small town that didn't know.
This feels like a
Good pizza.
confession or like an AA meeting.
No, it kind of is, because I was
Springsteen song at least.
I was really excited for stuffed crust pizza, you guys. I was all in on stuffed crust pizza. And then I had it, and I was like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Well, you imagine like
It's just congealed and gross.
it could have been done so well. It just happened that they just decided they're just going to put like string cheese all around the crust, and you're just like, oh, but no. It's like when they do like hot dogs in pizzas, like hot dog crust pizza.
Mm-hmm.
You think, oh, like a nice sausage in there would be nice.
Yeah.
Italian sausage you bite into. No, it's just like a hot dog in there, and you're like, yeah, come on.
I have been neglectful. There's been some fun commentary out on the Facebook post. Corey McBride Aguilar, who was my good friend from Shawnee Mission East High School, and Gerald Aguilar are out there, and they're talking about the mobile wood-fired pizza business that they have. And they say their opinion is hand-stretched wood-fired pizza with quality toppings is the best. And then they do bring up the fact that pizza is always paired with a memory. It's food in general is something that affects all our senses, and we have these memories that come along with it. And it is breaking bread. It is the most primal of ways that humans can share food. And
We were when I was on my honeymoon with Emily in Iceland. We were walking down like the main
A well-known
street-
pizza.
the main street in Reykjavik, and we were walking down the street, and it smelled exactly like, and for you LA people, it smelled like Shakey's Pizza. It's not, and we couldn't find where it was coming from. It just happened to smell exactly
In Iceland.
walking like downtown
Yeah,
Reykjavik.
yeah,
There's
yeah.
one town. It was just this waft of like this is Shakey's, and so
Yeah.
like smell and memory and food. It's just there.
Yeah. I'm surprised there aren't more polarizing. If you post a photo of a piece of pizza on Facebook, all kinds of people will comment. on it. So I'm surprised there aren't
And
more.
all the New Yorkers come in and like, that's no real pizza.
That's not real pizza.
It's not made with Brooklyn water. That drives me nuts, by the way, the Brooklyn water thing. What a ripoff. It's just water. Are we seriously doing this?
That's why we didn't have them on our list.
Okay, so this has been the Mount Rushmore of pizza styles. Let me see if there's any other commentary out there on the video stream. But I do want to ask you to go to the podcast, the Mount Rushmore podcast, where we talk about all kinds of things. We talk about the Mount Rushmore of breakfast cereal mascots coming up. What else do we have coming up, you guys?
We're gonna do Richard. You suggested one which was one-off characters from the Star Wars Skywalker saga.
Which is a little unwieldy, but I don't want like a Rogue One character, basically.
Yeah.
That drives me nuts.
You're looking for a good old Lobot.
I'll accept a Babu Frick from Rise of Skywalker.
In the links to this video, there are links in the notes under this live stream video. There are links where you can go click on our podcasts out there on Apple, out in Spotify, out in Stitcher. And we invite you to go click, go subscribe, go listen to past podcasts, give us a rating. And we also invite you to go to our social media handles, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and tell us what you think about the podcast, share the podcast with other people, and let us know future episodes that you might like to.
I mean, don't do it right now because I'm sure you're too busy eating pizza like me.
Eating pizza and preparing for the Oscars. So.
Oh yeah, they rolled out the red carpet tonight here. We walked in, we took our photographs.
That's right.
It was lovely. Who are you wearing? Gray.
I'm gray.
Jeff's wearing gray hoodie too.
Yeah.
Richard's in black hoodie. So
Yeah.
we all got, we all know what styles going around. My hoodies in this year.
That's right. Well, I just want to thank you guys for tuning in, and thanks for tuning into future of these live streams.
One next month, right?
We got one next month. I think it's pie. I don't know what we're talking about.
Famous leprechauns!
Oh, it is famous Irish people. Mount Rushmore, famous Irish
yes.
people. So,
Yeah.
so we'll see.
Three of my four are going to be leprechauns.
Yeah, a famous Irish president. Maybe JFK will show in his Lincoln Continental. Okay, so thanks so much. On behalf of the Mount Rushmore podcast, my name is Jeff.
I'm Richard.
Hi, Michael.